The Doomsday Podcast, special rookie minicamp episode. And Ed, this is always a fan favorite. A lot of times because of some of the interviews we get with players, we'll be introducing a big time guest. And I'll go ahead and say it, Mike Zimmer today. And I think people will be excited about that. And we'll give him a proper intro here in a second. But Ed, just the overall flavor of minicamp, just to give our listeners that aren't out there at all these things kind of a backstage pass. In true Cowboys fashion, everything next to where we were watching the rookies go through their little the public portion, the orientation, over to the side field. They were getting ready for like the country music awards, and they were setting up like there'll be huge tents and celebrations for that. I know you're going to a big country concert tonight. And this has gone from, even in the past five, since McCarthy's been here, where we actually could kind of watch them do some one-on-ones and get a tiny bit of a feel for them, to basically this is just a flat out walkthrough where McCarthy showed up about 15 minutes into it. Zimmer was, just kind of wandered out there a little late. So I just wanted to give our people a proper taste of the rookie camp is more of just a learning, true orientation walkthrough. And as far as strapping it up and playing a bunch of football, that does not happen.
Yeah, they were just out in shorts, no shoulder pads, no helmets. The first day, I think they may evolve to that today. But the primary purpose is to, kind of let the coaches engage with the players in person for the first time. Let them see where these players are in terms of understanding the playbook installations, offensively and defensively, that they've been sent since they were drafted or signed as unrestricted free agents. And then really to prepare them for being on the field and at the facility for the next few weeks of OTAs with the veteran players who come in on Monday. We expect almost all the veterans. I don't think CeeDee Lamb will be likely to participate given his contract situation. I think Dak Prescott has indicated he'll be there, even though he's being forced to, at this point, play on the final year of his contract. So that's what the purpose of it is. There is very little football. It is just mostly walkthroughs and meetings, and creating the opportunity for us to go out there and engage with these players. And as you said, sit down the new or old defensive coordinator of the Dallas Cowboys.
All right. And with that, as we do each and every episode, I would like to ask our friend Mike to please play the music. All right, here we are. It is Doomsday Podcast. Ed and I, the day after, it is Mother's Day weekend. Happy Mother's Day to all you moms out there. We'll be celebrating moms, wives, everybody. Hope everybody has a tremendous weekend. Ed, and man, I got to give you full credit here. He is a guy I've known for a long time, but boy, once Ed put in the request, and we had some humorous moments, and Ed, you've had humorous moments over the years with Mike Zimmer. He is known as being somewhat crusty, grouchy, I think he described himself at some point. So I don't think he showed up for his second tour of duty as a defensive coordinator dying to do a bunch of interviews. But when Ed Werder reached out via Cowboys PR, Ed, we got our man. And pretty exciting time to, especially given the events of Mike's life and what's been going on and him being out of football for a couple of years. This really feels like a major opportunity for him, and just kind of a second, just an extension of what's been a really fine career as a defensive coordinator and as a head coach with the Vikings. But Ed, I thought this was pretty cool for us to be able to get to sit down with Coach Zimmer.
Yeah, Mike Zimmer's obviously a fiery personality, so much so that he spent his introductory press conference a few months ago basically denying and disputing the perception that he's, quote unquote, a jerk. But I think players who have performed for him at the highest levels, guys like Darren Woodson, have said that he is going to change the atmosphere out there. He's not out there to be anybody's friend. He's out there to get the best out of these players and to create a more competitive defense. It's interesting to me that despite all of the enormous success Dan Quinn created on the defensive side of the ball, that the fans were elated when he left for the head coaching job with the division rival Washington Commanders. And I think some people are not all that thrilled with the idea of Jerry Jones going back in time and bringing back Mike Zimmer. But Mike Zimmer's success here is close to unparalleled as a defensive coach. I mean, 13 seasons with the Cowboys in an assortment of roles under 4 different head coaches previous to Mike McCarthy. Spent 8 seasons, obviously, as a head coach of the Minnesota Vikings, but 14 seasons of experience as an NFL defensive coordinator, competing, obviously, in the NFC North against Mike McCarthy's Packers for 6 seasons. Zimmer's 67 years old now, was a Cowboys assistant from 94 to 2006, starting as a defensive assistant. Moved to defensive backs coach in 95. The last year Dallas won a Super Bowl, incidentally. Served as coordinator under 2 different head coaches, Dave Campo and Bill Parcells. But like I said, 13 years as a defensive assistant, starting with Barry Switzer in 1994, and then ultimately spending 6 seasons with Bill Parcells as his defensive coordinator, and an array of experiences which he's going to describe. And as you mentioned, been out of the NFL since the Vikings fired him the past 2 seasons. But listen to this. At each of Zimmer's 3 stops as a coordinator or head coach, he's brought multiple top 5 defenses. He had the number 1 and number 3 defenses in Dallas in 2001, 2003. Cincinnati in 2009, they were 4th. In 2013, they were 3rd. In Minnesota, 2016, they were 3rd. 2017, they were 1st. 2018, they were 4th. So of his 22 defenses, 7 have finished in the top 10 in rush defense. The biggest point of emphasis this offseason for Mike McCarthy, improving the run game on offense and improving their ability to stop the run on defense after that horrendous playoff performance in which they surrendered a franchise playoff record 42 points while being eliminated at home by the Packers. Failed to create a takeaway or a sack for the first time all season. And so I think we had a nice opportunity to talk to Mike Zimmer about a variety of things that previously he was unable to address, such as Micah Parsons' role under him, the emphasis he's going to place on creating more size at linebacker and in the secondary, and his evaluation of guys like Trayvon Diggs and Deron Bland.
And as you'll see on some of our YouTube clips, we did it in some really nice digs in a huge meeting room setting. And Ed and I, it really put us in the mood. And I thought hopefully we'll come across as just huge football guys when you get to hear this. It is now time to listen in to our interview with Cowboys defensive coordinator Mike Zimmer.
Hey, we're here with Mike Zimmer in the team meeting room at the Cowboys. Tad got us in the team meeting room.
Very nice.
With the most important coach on the staff, other than Paul Gunther. Anyway, Mike, welcome back to Dallas. You've left the Vikings 2 years ago. You were out of football for a couple of years. As you've come back to the game now and you've looked at tape of these guys, what first impressions do you have about the players you're inheriting?
There's a lot of talent here. I do think we're thin in some areas, but hopefully we've accomplished some of the things in the draft with Kneeland and Marist, trying to get those guys up to speed and adding a few bigger bodies. But yeah, it's been fun. It's been exciting. You look at the success they've had over especially the last 3 years. It's fun to work with these guys.
You said you had a time of reflection when you were out for a couple of years. What was the most important thing you feel like you've either changed in your approach or just when you had time to actually just kind of sit there? I'm just kind of wondering what, by the way, did you watch as a fan, or was it more like a coach on Sundays? Were you taking notes? What was that like?
No, I wasn't taking notes. It was more like just watching. I wasn't a fan of any team. Maybe a fan against a team, but other than that, I honestly I didn't watch a Minnesota game. Still haven't since the day I left. No, I just watched, and then talking about reflection, it's about you go back and you sit back and think back at things over the course of the 8 years that I was there. I can remember one thing very specifically. We went to NFC champ. We beat the playoffs, Saints in the playoffs, in the divisional round, and we won on the last second. We should have won the game easy, but anyway, come back and we get the miracle, the Minnesota Miracle, or Minneapolis Miracle, I guess they call it. But the next week I'm just back in it, and it's we got a chance to go to the Super Bowl and a conference championship game, and I was just like, okay, this is business as usual. Hey, guys will get back into it, and I probably didn't take into effect the mental thing that everybody was talking about, the Super Bowl in Minnesota. The emotions that came from that game. All those things. So it was a lot of reflections like that. And then, going back to over the course of each season, talking about, okay, what could I have done better? How could I have helped the team be a better team? Things like that.
Did you, when you left Minnesota, did you think you'd coach again in the NFL?
Yeah, I didn't know. I figured I'd have some opportunities. Honestly, I thought, I had a 50, I don't know, whatever it is, 56 winning percentage or something, and been to 3 playoffs and conference championship game. So I figured somebody would be calling right away to be a head coach, but they didn't call. So, I was just going about my business, and, I did stay on top of things. Marvin Lewis and I are good friends, and we did it wasn't a podcast like you guys do, but it's
not a high-dollar operation like this.
But it was something where we'd watch film, we'd talk about players, and we'd sit down afterwards and we'd communicated a lot because he was out at the time too. So, I mean, I didn't. You never really know, when you're out and you get to be a certain age, and those kind of things.
I think the most remarkable stat or fact about you returning to Dallas is Mike McCarthy's the 5th different head coach that you've worked for in this organization.
Yeah.
What stands out to you about the guys you've worked for and the way that they've influenced you as a coach?
Well, all different. All different. I was very close to Dave Campbell, obviously, when he became the head coach and I became the coordinator here. But we were good friends for a long time. Coach Switzer, I think, with Coach Switzer, I felt like I learned how to treat people better, because he was always a very caring person, very smart football guy. And, with Parcells, I felt like, he was a guy always poking a stick. But honestly, I learned more football from him than I did anybody. And he'd walk into my office. We'd have the team meeting. We'd walk back from the team meeting because they go to special teams. And my office was next door. And he'd come and sit down. And he'd say, write this down when you're a head coach, and write this down. So I still have a binder of things that he told me. But, when I was an assistant, I was just concentrating on being the best assistant I can, getting the players to play the best. I wasn't, my whole deal wasn't to be a head coach. And then when he started planting that seed all the time, it's like, yeah, maybe I should try to do this and see what happens.
Isn't that crazy, that staff that you were on? You didn't know it at the time. I was writing this down earlier. Sean, Anthony Lynn, Todd Bowles, Sperano, Haley. One of the guys ended up being the Colorado head coach, your assistant secondary coach. I mean, isn't that kind of wild? And I don't know how much that is just, boy, Bill had assembled this incredible staff, or is just Bill, his very presence or working under him, but it's kind of amazing when you think back on that.
Yeah, I think, 2 things. Usually it's success, and then, whoever the mentor is, and he's telling you, he's talking about you to the people that call him, or, the same thing with me. I had two coaches leave when I was in Minnesota to become head coaches, and so, I think a lot of that is not necessarily the tree, but you have success, then people can, people want people that have been successful.
Have you chilled out a little bit on like when you get to the office? Bill used to talk about arriving at whatever 4. He said he got there at 4. I never knew if that was totally true, but you were always there, whatever time he rolled in.
Some days he was there very, very early. Not all the time, but there's some days that he would beat me in. No, I still get here pretty early. It's a little bit later now because it's the spring. I think, when it gets to the fall, I'll be back to the old deal.
You mentioned it. You inherit a defense that's been really successful. Dan Quinn, the last 3 years, they've led the NFL in takeaways, in defensive touchdowns, in points off turnovers. They're up there in sacks. What is it in your mind that's missing that you can provide?
Well, I don't know, Ed. We're going to go about it trying to put the players in the best position, and then go from there. Trying to continue to do the good things they've done. They've been a very pressure-based defense, which I love. They've got some really good pressure players, and we've lost some good players too. But I think there might be a little bit of a mixture of pressure and coverage and disguise and things like that maybe can help us. And maybe not get as many turnovers or all those, but I think if you go back and look at my history throughout the time, there's been a lot of sacks, a lot of pressure, low scoring games, so that's really what we want to try and do is keep the scores down, and if we get opportunities to get turnovers, interceptions, and sacks, and so be it.
Is there a real focus on the run defense, which seemed to be the thing that cost Dallas at the end of the year?
I don't know if you remember back when I was my first game as a coordinator, we played the Eagles opening day, and it was the pickle juice game.
Yeah, I remember that.
The onside kick the first game, and that year, I was coming secondary coach and say, hey, turn these guys loose, let them rush, and we gave up 220 yards rushing that day. So from that day on, there's always been an emphasis on stopping the run, and I think you can go back through the time when I was from here all the way through Minnesota that we've put a major emphasis on the run game and it being a priority to do that in order to rush the passer.
What did you think of Micah from afar, watching him, and then now I assume you've got to visit with him? Have you started to inform him, hey, here are some ideas I have for you?
Not too much, it's all voluntary now, and we've communicated, but we've been putting together the things that we want to use with him, and then when he gets here next week, we'll start implementing those things.
Will you be as creative with him as Dan Quinn has been?
I hope so. I think I'm pretty creative.
Will he be involved in the double-A gap?
Well, here's the thing, and I want to make sure that, he's such an outstanding pass rusher, right? And getting to the quarterback and making negative plays, that if he's standing here in that A gap, that center's going to him, right? And so this guy right here is going to be in charge of the back. So there's going to be some times where, he'll be rushing from there. There'll be times when he's rushing there and, we're getting the protection turned the way that we want it turned, and we can bring and get 2 on the back. So there'll be a lot of different ways that we'll be doing some of that. And sometimes he'll be lined up outside. Sometimes he'll be lined up somewhere back there. But we're going to move him around, yeah.
How rare is his combination of speed and power? I mean, you've been around some really good ones. How does he stand out in that area?
Yeah, he's rare. Obviously, tremendous athlete. From what I understand, very, very smart. And and usually smart guys that have outstanding ability, their ceiling is so high that you can do a lot of things with them because they're going to know what to do and how to do it, and the other thing too that I think, I hired Greg Ellis, or Mike hired Greg Ellis to help with the defense and the pass rush, and Greg was the best I've ever been around using his hands and setting guys up with rushes and things like that. So, our job is to try to get, in a lot of the games last year where they didn't play quite as good defensively, the offensive schemed Parsons a lot. The back was checking, and coming over here to or they got the 2 tight ends over there and they're both staying and all the protections turned that way. So our job is to, if teams are going to do that, number one, figure out a way how we can still use him where we want him, and number two, how can we use other people to affect those kind of protections? Because everybody's going to be aware of him, just like I talked about in the A gap. Everybody knows where he is. There's number 11, right? So okay, so we're turning the protection this way, and now how are we going to defeat that protection? And typically, when we started with the double A gaps and all, and when I was here with Parcells, part of it was how can we attack protections, and it's getting a lot of the other players to understand, hey, this is where the protection's going now. You guys have one-on-ones over here, or we have 3 one-on-ones with the back on this side. So how can we do that? And it's partly going to be their job to understand that, okay, we've got the slide going this way. We're man over here. What game are we going to run to affect those 2 players? Because it's 2-on-2 now.
Remember when Ellis started doing like jujitsu or something? Was that, I don't know if it was 03 or 04, but I imagine that even maybe helped some of the hands and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and if you see him walking down the hallway now, he's still doing stuff like this. You
Wax on.
You think
wax
he's talking to somebody, But and I've had him come to training camp with me before, when I was the head coach. So I know what he can do, and the way that he teaches, and he's outstanding.
I thought he was like a movie producer, though. I guess he's now put that aside.
I don't know if he was a movie producer.
Yeah, he was involved in that Carter High movie. Yeah, he was one of the producers on that.
All those pro guys are involved with a lot of stuff.
You mentioned that your background as a coach is coaching defensive backs, and you inherit some pretty good ones here. 2 guys in Trayvon Diggs coming off an ACL injury that cost him almost all of last season, and Deron Bland, a 5th-round pick who leads the NFL in interceptions. You have 2 guys who have led the lead in interceptions the last 3 years. What do you see in what you can do with them?
Well, I think they've done a great job in the coverage part. It's been a lot of man-to-man stuff. I think Al's done a nice job. Al Harris has done a nice job with the technique of things, and him and I have talked about a lot of specific things. We're very similar on a lot of ideas as far as how we like to teach things, and he's been receptive of understanding my ideas, and I've been understanding of his ideas, and I think both of those things will lead to continually getting these guys better, and that's the only thing we want to do is continue getting better. It's a luxury when you have 2 good corners. I think when you go back and again you look at the history, when I've had 2 good corners, we've played pretty good defense.
Who does Diggs remind you of, if anybody? I mean, his instincts and his ability to track the ball. I mean, obviously you coach Dion, and that's the name everybody's going to throw out. But is anybody else that comes to mind?
I don't know. He's big, and he's got obviously great athletic ability. But the thing that stands out about him, probably more so than anything, is he's got the best hands of any defensive back. He can find the ball and go get it and catch the ball in a lot of awkward ways. So, typically defensive backs are, have not quite as good hands as those guys. But I can't really pinpoint anybody. Obviously Dion had good hands, but guys have to get a ways up there before you're comparing them to Deion Sanders.
How the Cowboys were the last team to sign an unrestricted free agent from another team, and that player is Eric Kendricks for you, played with you, a linebacker in Minnesota for a number of years. How important is having somebody who can help these players learn your system from experience?
Yeah, I think it's been great because, Eric has been through it. He can help the younger guys. We go out here and we do walkthroughs and stuff like that, and he's on top of things. He can make all the checks and things, and understands the coverage part of things, the pressures. He understands those, and so I think that piece has been really integral in getting this, these, especially the other guys, communicating the front guys when we have to move a front or adjust things. He's really good at that.
Do you need to get bigger at linebacker? They had a safety last year playing linebacker, but I thought back about Coakley and Dat. They weren't exactly the biggest linebackers, and they played extremely well. How you've kind of evolved on that, and how do you view that position?
Well, I think, first off, we're going to try to have at least 2 linebackers in there all the time, and sometimes 3. So, a lot of things the offense is doing now with some of the jet motions and that, they're trying to get nickelbacks into run fits. And so, now you got a DB in a run fit, and you got another DB in a run fit. You're just not as physical as you need to be. And so, we'll have deals where most of the time we're going to have at least 2 linebackers in the ball game. And as far as getting bigger, Kendricks isn't the most biggest guy in the world, but he's instinctive and he makes plays, and he flies around to the ball. So, but yeah, I mean, football's a big man's game. So the more that you can get that, but in today's game they still have to cover in space, and so you have to find linebackers that can cover in space, or they have to be able to add things in the pressure package.
What did you like about Marist? We got to talk to him a little bit today. What stood out about him? Because I'm sure he fits kind of what you're talking about.
Yeah, well, number one, he's brilliant. He catches on really quick. Almost, he wants to be so good and so intense that I think he wants to be. He almost is like too much at it right now. But it's the first day. So, but the other thing is, I think he's a really good pressure player, and I think having that with Parsons and another pressure player that is a linebacker, or he can move somewhere else and Parsons can move somewhere else, I think those pieces add to kind of confusion more for the offense. Plus, he's a pretty good rusher.
How would you describe your coaching style and how it's evolved over time?
Yeah, it's a good question, Ed. I've never been. I guess the biggest thing is, we're going to have to see how I am after 2 years. I feel very comfortable with what I'm telling the players and how I'm telling them. We had a walkthrough out here the other day, and I wasn't as pleased with how it was going, and I let them know. So, I'm demanding, I guess. As far as how much I've changed from the time I've been here to then, I can't tell you yet. It's going to happen, during the course of preseason, the games, and go from there. But I got a job to do, and to get these players to play the best that they possibly can play, be as disciplined as they possibly can be, and play together as a team. So we have to get guys understanding their roles and what is asked of them to do. And I don't know if I've said this in other press conference, but one of my big sayings all the time is, do your job so someone else can have success doing theirs. So you might not like taking on this double team, but that's your job. And this guy, because you're doing it, has got an opportunity to make some plays. And next time, he's going to help you make some plays. But that's how it all works together, whether it's corners and safeties or defensive line and linebackers or whatever it is.
You said you've actually whispered to player, some guys that didn't like getting called out in public. You change your style. Okay, I don't remember that, Zimmer, but so you kind of put your arm around the guy
There's several guys that have been like that. I don't ever remember really getting after Darren Woodson or Deion Sanders. I don't, there'd be times on the sideline I'd say, what the heck are you doing here? It's like, or things like that, but it's never really, and I'm hard on the rookies. There's no question about it, because I feel like you have to train them first, to make sure that you're demanding, because, it's like having little kids. If you let them get out of hand, then they're going to continue to get out of hand. So, but yeah, I had one guy that just probably had several. That you had to just coach him and understand, and I'd walk up to him and say, hey, try it like this time. Do it. Just wait here, and then kind of work your way down, and things like that. But as long as guys are understanding and trying and want to be coached, I got no issues with that. And will there be times I get mad? No doubt. But I don't. to me, each guy is different. I think that's what teaching or coaching or whatever it is.
Generally speaking, do great players like to be coached hard?
They like to be coached. And I still think they're all different a little bit. Harrison Smith is a great player, for Minnesota. Had him for a long time, and he'd miss a tackle, and I'd just give him a look, and but he knew more than he knew when he played.
He knew he had
bad.
failed.
Yeah, he knew he played bad or something like that, or he made a bad play on something. So I didn't need to bang it into him. He already knew. So, but those guys get a little bit more freedom because they know what they can do and what's expected of them, and that's what the great players do.
What do you and Mike's relationship now that you knew each other, and I think you'd obviously become friends in the same division, but working together every day, spending a lot of time together? What's that been like?
Yeah, I don't know that we're friends in the same division. In the same division, we weren't really friends.
Yeah, I thought personally maybe
But
you
you
had
talked
been able
about
to.
that your
Yeah.
team gave him the hardest time.
Yeah,
He's an offensive coach. He's
very
calling
complimentary.
plays. You're calling the plays
Yeah.
on defense, and you guys gave him the hardest time.
Yeah, and they gave us the hardest time too. That when I came in there, they were the team you had to beat, and fortunately we beat them a few times, and they beat us a few times. But no, it's been great. We sit down and talk about football and schemes and life and all different things. He's really involved obviously with the whole team, but we have opportunities to sit down and just talk about, hey, do you remember this play or that play, or you're seeing teams do this now or that. So no, it's been great.
What was your draft experience like? Has a general manager changed at all in the draft room?
Nope, it's been the same since I was here the last time. Coaches have a lot of input. Scouts, I should say this. So of all the places that I've been, and not to take anything away from anybody else, these guys do a tremendous job in the draft room. The analytics, talking about his play speed, talking about who he kind of correlates to. All that. I think they do an outstanding job. And I'm not saying this because I'm here. I'm telling, usually what I tell is the truth. So, but the scouts have a lot of input. They're not afraid to disagree on guys. The coaches have a lot of input. And then, obviously Jerry and Steven will sit in there and we'll talk about it, and they listen. And then obviously they make the decision. But along with Mike. So. No, I'm telling you, it's as good as I've ever been. And in Minnesota, we had a really good system and did things the right way. And Cincinnati, but this is the most in-depth, involved draft process that I think I've been in.
And what kind of job has Tad done?
Shitty.
Because here you are
today.
He didn't shield you from this properly.
It was great. It was great until now.
By the way, being a grandfather, you mentioned it. Like how cool is that? And then to be here, get to be around them more.
Yeah, I see them almost every night now.
Wow.
They come over to the house, and they're wild little buggers. But it's been fun. Yeah, it's been fun to be able to see my other daughter and both the daughters. But that part's good. Dallas has always been a great place. I always thought that I might end up coming back here and living someday, regardless of where I was, because my kids were all growing up here, and so it's always been kind of home to me anyway.
Mm-hmm. What do they call you?
Papa.
Okay.
Papa, thanks for doing this.
Papa, I want some money.
You're old enough to ask for money?
No, I'm kidding.
They're
My
already
grandson
showing
bets
some-
me steps every day.
I gave my one day there. I was over at their house, and so I gave one of them $100. And he's like, he's got this. He didn't know how much it was, but my daughter was pissed.
All right, there he was, Mike Zimmer. And Ed, I thought you certainly being a grandfather and a very proud grandfather of Henry and Delilah, I thought it was, I thought I needed to, get that in at the very end. And no matter how much of a curmudgeon he might be, or even you might be, Ed, at times, No, no grandfathers love talking about their grandkids and grandmothers as well. But I thought that was kind of neat and I thought that's another great thing about him being back. Now, he's always loved Dallas, and he's always, from what I recall, kept a home in Dallas for years and years. Even when he was at Cincinnati, Minnesota, other places, he still had a property in Dallas. But I thought that was kind of poignant, Ed. The thought that I think he said every night he gets to see his grandkids, and for some of the different things he's going through or has gone through. I mean, I just think that has to be a really neat thing for him.
Right. He lost his wife unexpectedly. And then, of course, last year, his son, Adam, who was an assistant coach for him with the Vikings, passed away suddenly as well. And so he's dealt with quite a lot of tragedy. And I just think the guy is really a great football coach. I think he coaches sort of an old school way that people in Dallas will appreciate. I mean, there's always been this perception, and Jimmy Johnson's made the accusation publicly, that since he's left, there's always been sort of this country club atmosphere, around the Cowboys, and that there's not been someone who has a strong enough personality that demands accountability and can get on players openly. But Zimmer certainly fits that profile. And, I can attest to that. I'll tell you two funny stories. I think are funny stories, anecdotes coming out of this Mike Zimmer interview. But when he was with the Vikings as a head coach, he got appointed. I was at ESPN in Bristol in studio that day. And it finally happened after, 30 some interviews he'd had for head coaching jobs around the league, never getting hired. He finally gets the Vikings head coaching job. So I reached out to our friend Darren Woodson, who's been on the show many times. And I said to Darren, hey, what is it? Give me an example of the quality that you think, exemplifies his personality and the reason you think he'll be successful as a head coach in charge of all things football with the Minnesota Vikings. And he said, call up Bill Parcells and ask him how many times Zim told him to F off in front of the whole team. And so that was a great example. And then I got assigned a Vikings at Chiefs game. And so, as I normally do, I want to talk to both head coaches during the week. And Zim, reluctantly agreed on Friday at 7:00. He'd talk to me on the phone. So I get up early. I'm on the phone. He calls me. He's with his PR director, Bob Hagan, who's since retired. And Zimmer, as only Zimmer can do, starts going off on me about, all right, what is it you need? What's so important, that I need to take 15 minutes away from getting my team ready to play at Arrowhead against Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill? What is it that you need that justifies me giving up part of my preparation time to answer questions from you? What do you want? And obviously he was great and talked about the Chiefs' offensive speed and basically challenged me to use something he told his team. He described the Chiefs as FAF. And I said, what's FAF? And he said, well, it's how I describe them, but you can't use it on TV. In fact, I dare you to use it on TV. And I said, what's FAF mean? He says, fast as F. So.
And I got a little nervous there, and I think Rogue Media Network, our new partners, did. I thought you were going to come rolling out with that. And our new partners have ties to the Baptist down there in Waco, so we'll have to see, where, because can you imagine when they hear stretch for the first time after a bad Cowboys game? But love those stories. It was fun seeing Zim. Zim just had his coaching stuff on, didn't he? And he was just kind of ready to go, man. He just he was back in his element, and it was kind of fun to see. I also got a kick out of the fact we kept sort of asking some of the defensive players, hey, what's it been like talking to Zim? And I felt like most of them were like, well, I hadn't really seen him yet or haven't really talked to him. Mike will be tough on them. And I don't think Mike's going to be like, hey, let's have some long. But again, away from them, like he said about Maris, the kid from Notre Dame, was that third or fourth round pick out of Notre Dame, the linebacker.
Fourth.
Fourth. He said that, the guy's like incredible, like for his studies and what he can memorize, and almost to the point of it being a little too much at some point. But I mean, he was extremely complimentary of like what he knows. and knowing every position and all that kind of stuff. And I thought that was certainly a good sign for that young player. Now, another young player, Ed, in typical doomsday fashion, you had already taken part in a Marshawn Kneeland. He's a second-round pick for the Cowboys, edge rusher out of Western Michigan. You had already taken part in like a group type thing. Well, I realized, he's just kind of hanging out down here. Nobody's around him. I'd like to maybe visit one-on-one with Marshawn, and Ed is standing down the hall doing some tweets or something. And so I shout down the hall, Ed, come down here. And that is how
I shot you a minor look of annoyance, I think.
Yes,
when you interrupted my tweeting. Never interrupt my tweeting, please.
Uh-huh.
You should know better by now.
We had an opportunity to have the young Marshawn Kneeland, and so it was with good reason that I shouted down the hall. And you and I, and of course, I'm not going to ask anybody to edit this. Early on in this interview, it shows how much I listen. My wife would not be surprised by this, but I have a moment where I didn't really click in as quickly as I needed to. I thought I really had y'all stumped. And
you had us totally baffled. People hear it right off the start, right off the top of this interview too.
Here is our exclusive one-on-one interview with the Cowboys' new second rounder, Marshawn Kneeland.
Mosley and Warder on the Doomsday podcast. No, go ahead. I'd like to hear this. What are you gonna say?
I want to say if y'all can change my ESPN photo, because that is we gotta change that as fast as possible. Because it's like me looking to the side. It's so bad.
I'll send him the one I just took.
Okay, there we go.
I think you'll like it.
Yeah, they got to do that as soon as possible.
So as Marshawn was walking off after his group address here at the Star, I asked him why he chose number 94, knowing what comes with that. DeMarcus Ware, Charles Haley, two Hall of Fame edge rushers who have worn that number. You didn't choose it, right? You said they just assigned it.
They assigned it to me. But, I take that, and as a huge respect that obviously they like me a lot. I had 94 while I was in college, and, I love the number. So.
Do you know who else famous for the Cowboys wore that number?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you just said it.
No, but there's another one. There's another, Hall of Famer.
Oh, another one? Those are the two I really know. I think there's another one. I don't want to be wrong, so I can't be wrong on it.
It's Charles Haley.
Charles Haley. Yeah, we said Charles Haley.
I'm so sorry.
I was like, who's the third one? I'm like, who's the third guy?
I'm like, I know somebody else had it, but
I can think of one. No, okay.
So now you need a picture replaced, and he needs that segment to be
we'll
take it out.
We'll edit that. But is this process right now? Boy, it sounds like you've settled in here quickly, found a place here. Like, how much of it you were studying the playbook, and has Zimmer had any kind of one-on-ones with you? Like, how much time have you gotten to absorb from being around him?
Definitely, like you said, study the playbook all the time. That's a given. I feel like anywhere you go, if you're a rookie, you got to learn the playbook as fast as possible. I don't think I got too much one-on-one time with Zimmer, but just talking with my position coach and with him, I feel like, this year they're looking at me to, contribute. And, they want to see what I could do, see what I can learn, obviously, as quick as possible, and how quick I can fit in. I think it's a little bit of even playing ground just because it's a, new staff coming in or new coordinator coming in. So it's like, even with the old guys, they got to learn it too. So it's like, you just see who learns it faster.
when they say they picked you in the second round and they say the comp that they have in mind is DeMarcus Lawrence, who you'll be playing with, because you find that flattering as he's known as a guy who plays, both a run and an elite pass rusher, and plays with a relentless style, which I think is what you're compared to.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely looking to be able to come in and learn a lot from him. A lot. I just definitely get excited. Those times where me and him be out there together, obviously me and Micah, and being able to just play.
I'm fascinated with the fact that some guys like you stayed even after you were hugely productive, and I'm sure people were approaching you with offers. Why was that so important for you to stay where you started and when you could have made so much money probably in the portal?
I think it was huge because those coaches obviously recruited me out of high school, which I was under recruited to say the least. Not many other colleges was like even gave me a chance. So if it wasn't for them, I probably wouldn't be in this exact same scenario. I feel like I still was gonna go to the league, but you know what I mean. I wouldn't be in the position I am right now. So it's huge respects to them. So when a new head coach came in, he kept Espo and kept the strength coach G2, and a couple other guys like as far as D-line coach David Denham and our corners coach and yeah, definitely was able to stay there with the guys that believed in me. And
What was your best NIL deal?
Over like for any school or there?
No. Like what that you had at your school. Did you get a couple of NIL deals at least, or like with the car dealership or something?
I got a car, and then we had a collective that we did there.
Okay.
Like many other schools, but yeah, I think because a lot of teams the year prior kind of couldn't reach out to me because I wasn't a grad. So but I was so close, so a lot of my credits wouldn't have transferred over. So I didn't get too much, but I think my highest was like 150 if I would have left.
Mm-hmm.
But I stayed and obviously took a pay cut, quotation mark, just because relationships and those, my
You
guys.
want to be loyal to the people who are true to you.
Oh yeah. So
yeah. What is it like to entertain the thought of playing with Micah Parsons, who might be the best defensive player in football right now?
It's definitely great. I'm excited because, with him being, one of the best, I'm able to come here and learn from him, see how he goes about his day, see why he's a pro and the way he is. And, I haven't met them yet. So hopefully, because you hear about the old guys sometimes, they kind of, throw off rookies a little bit, but hopefully they're
been
nice.
in the league 3 years.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So it's like, hopefully he's, nice. Hopefully D-Law nice. All my guys in there, and yeah.
Jim Nagy, who runs the Senior Bowl, and you went to the Senior Bowl.
Yeah.
He said one of the things that impressed him about you is you have some alpha characteristics in you. Even though you were a small school guy, you weren't intimidated by the SEC guys or the Power 5 guys that you encountered for the first time.
Yeah, nah. I look at them, we all in the same position, we all in the same boat. Even here, like now we all in the league, so it's like whether you a guy from a bigger school or smaller school, it's like, hey, bro, we all in the same boat, so I'm gonna look at you the same, and play you the same.
Was there one rep where you really got their attention? Do you remember anybody you were going up against? Maybe one of those Power 5 types that maybe grabbed the Senior Bowl their attention?
I could think of a play. I forgot the guy name. That's gonna sound so bad, because most of them I remember their number, but it was honestly so long ago now. I don't remember.
Tyler Guyton.
Probably. Probably, man. Probably. So, hit him with the move, and yeah.
Okay. Do you like the power to speed, or do you go kind of the pass rush? The speed to power. What are you kind of known for? The bull rush.
Speed to power. For sure. I do like a lot of power, especially obviously where I played at, and the guys I've been able to go against, they're all susceptible to power. You might have to cut that out. But so, I abuse that, but I am allowed to, work a lot of speed. I have the flexibility and obviously strength for it, so yeah.
Mike Zimmer's known for the AA blitz, gap blitz.
Yeah.
Have you rushed from inside like that before?
Not yet. They want me to learn my position, and then once I learn that, they'll have me inside probably, and hopefully standing up, moving around. But for now, close side in or open side in, either or.
All right. What's Greg Ellis's best advice so far? We've known him for a while.
Can't think of best advice. One of them is get acclimated. Get acclimated as fast as possible, and availability. For sure.
I thought he told you to sign your contract. He's the only one who has it, right?
No, he's trying to make his NIL money back by whole. Just ask for that.
Yeah.
Make it back.
No, for sure.
Hey,
Thanks for your time.
Yeah, Marshawn Kneeland on the Doomsday Podcast.
All right, there it was. And Ed, lots of and I also thought it was funny that Marshawn he does not like how what ESPN's using for his picture. And so hearing that we were associated with ESPN, I'm obviously with an ESPN affiliate radio station, ESPN Central Texas. Ed, you are with big monster ESPN out of Bristol. I used to be. And he
We all
wanted
used to be.
he wanted to know if some pictures, if we could change the pics. I think you told him, "Hey, I took one of you. Maybe we could use that." So
I don't have much authority or influence in the big decisions at ESPN, but I might be able to help him with this one.
Okay, good.
I got
Good.
my own change because they were using something I didn't really like myself, so I could relate to his concern. And I did get my own picture changed, and maybe I can have some success in taking that on for him.
The place I work, Ed, still uses a 28-year-old. When I was 28 at the morning news, and I kind of like it. I just have
I wouldn't
decided
mind
I just decided to write it out. Wasn't a bad look back then. A thinner Mosley, a younger Mosley. But this is me now. This is me raw. I think I could use some better lighting and perhaps makeup, but we don't really do makeup for podcasting purposes. Now, Ed, as we kind of wrap this up, and what a deal. Exclusive with Zimmer, exclusive with a second-round pick. Had a nice little visit with Tyler Guyton off to the side, Cowboys' first-round pick, because, Ed, I had his high school coach on, the man who told him one day Tyler Guyton had transferred to Manor High School to play basketball, and the head football coach saw him walking in the halls and said, "Report to the field house immediately." And Tyler said, "Well, I've got class." He said, "I'll talk to the teacher. It's okay." And that is how he
Not
became.
anymore.
That's how he became a football player. And the rest, as they say, is history by way of TCU and then Oklahoma. Now, Ed, at these things, the head coach normally speaks, and that happened. And Mike McCarthy later in the day met with reporters, and happens during these OTAs / rookie mini camps, and said a few things of interest. But Ed, one thing I wanted us to sound off on was he was asked about the return of Zeke Elliott. And Mike said all the things you would expect, a huge smile, what his presence means. Ed, you noted when we were standing in the locker room, oh, there he is, right over there by Dak. He's now number 15, okay, goes back to his old college number at Ohio State. But Mike had some interesting things to say in regards to like what his role would be. And Mike went out of his way to be complimentary, said he looks a lot like the guy who used to be here, but also said, hey, no real, this is going to be a running back by committee, which again, given what the Cowboys have done this offseason and given with Pollard leaving in free agency or losing him in free agency, Ed, this is not, again, Zeke, good leader, nice to have him back. But in terms of a running production, I would say this current group does not inspire a lot of confidence.
Well, and like I mentioned before, the 2 points of emphasis this offseason for McCarthy, at least according to what he said publicly when it began, was we need to improve our running game on offense and we need to be better at stopping the run on defense. Well, I don't see how they've improved themselves in the run game on offense unless they've done it with these offensive line draft picks, right? If they've done it with Tyler Guyton taking over for Tyron Smith as a rookie left tackle. And if Connor Beebe replaces Tyler Biadasz as the starting center. And that is where those two players have begun their work in this initial minicamp. To me, if they're going to be a good running team, then it's got to come from a better offensive line because the backs aren't better. At this point in his career, Ezekiel Elliott's not a better player than Tony Pollard. But I will say that I don't mind bringing Ezekiel Elliott back because I think he creates a mentality of toughness. He's a fierce competitor. I think he'll make them better around the goal line and in short yardage situations where they were an epic failure last year. And having somebody, McCarthy, you mentioned last year that there's a bigger emphasis on pass protection for the backs. Well, Zeke's always been one of the best in football at that. And so for those reasons, I understand bringing him back, and I think there's some valid explanations for that decision. But if you look at it overall, Ezekiel Elliott's average yardage rushing total per game has decreased every year of his career for 7 years. He's gone from a rookie where he led the NFL averaging 108 yards a game to last year leading a very bad Patriots team in rushing at 32 yards per game. He's gone from 108 yards per game to 32 yards per game rushing. He'll be better than that in Dallas, but it's just been a steady decline in his rushing performance. And, he doesn't create the big play very often anymore. So I think he has value, and I think pairing him with the right teammate would be effective like he and Pollard were 2 years ago, but I'm not sure they have the guy to pair him with right now.
Well, we shall see, but it is not. I don't know. Cowboys fans aren't that excited. This is not. They can't sit there and just tell us. I mean, they can tell us what they want, but the thought that this is like Zeke from 3 or 4 years ago, that's not going to happen. And Ed, we should also add that you got a guy starting. You got a rookie starting at left tackle. You may have a rookie at center who has not really played center. And so that, exacerbates the issue. And of course, then you got to watch that, pass protection as well. It did feel like, Ed, just wrapping this up, just it brought back a lot of memories. And I'm sure Cowboys fans sometimes think Jerry gets caught in this good old days syndrome, and maybe there's some accuracy to that criticism. But I will say personally, for me, you never know, when you cover these players a long time ago, it's been a while. I look different than I did when I was covering them 2003 to 2006. And some of them I just haven't talked to in a good while. And I just thought it was kind of fun. Greg Ellis sees me walking off the field. It's kind of like, what are you doing? What are you doing still out here kind of thing? And it was kind of a neat moment, and again, he was a really effective player for a lot of years for the Cowboys. And Zim is going to bring in the people that he's most comfortable with. And so I think Ellis, I think we even talked to Kneeland about it. I think Greg's going to start working with him. I think he's going to be a great coach, be a great assistant in working with these guys. So I thought it was good to be out there, and I thought it was a strong day for the Doomsday Podcast.
Well, and Zim praised Ellis, right? He said he's the best guy he's ever had, that he's ever coached in terms of how to use his hands properly. So there you go. That's the justification enough for bringing him on board as an assistant coach, replacing, I guess, Leon Lett, former player, and coached in that role for many years. And look at Charles Haley's out there quite a bit. DeMarcus Ware's made himself available to some of the young players around here. So they have a lot of opportunities to advance their careers and improve their performances.
I think he said Ellis was walking around doing
martial arts. He thought he was talking to somebody.
Greg discovered jiu-jitsu, I think it was, many years ago, and he brought that in and started training with some martial arts type things. Okay. It has been a good one. We appreciate our partners at Rogue Media Network. And Ed, this will be, I think this will be consumed by a lot of folks out there. And then also good work by you, Ed, with some video that'll be floating around on, you were a little late.
I remembered to record halfway through.
Yeah, we would have had video of the entire Zimmer thing, but it's okay. Ed remembered, and then so we will have some video. And I thought it looked good. We had good lighting, and Ed had a whole stand and everything. And I was very impressed. It just reminded me of Ed's illustrious TV career, him having all that at hand. All right, for Ed Werder, I am Matt Mosley. This has been a special edition of the Doomsday Podcast. We will see you again soon.
We are Rogue Media Sports.